Before I wrap tonight's show, I want to tell you a story that I came across this morning. It is a story of India's railway staff, of how they saved the lives of over 800 passengers. The story begins on Sunday night. A Chennai-bound train had left Tamil Nadu's Tiruchendur railway station at 8:30 p.m. local time. There were 800 passengers on board. They had just settled down for their overnight journey. Chennai was over 14 hours away. It was a rainy night. Some 34 kilometers from Tiruchendur, in Srivaikuntham, it began raining heavily. There was a cloudburst. The train was fast approaching Srivaikuntham. It had crossed Kayalpatinam, Arumuganeri, Kurumbur, Nazareth. Srivaikuntham was just 7 kilometers away. The railway engineers at the station had no idea what the rain had done to the tracks. So when the train reached the Srivaikuntham station, the staff decided to stop the train and not let it go any further. This call saved nearly 1,000 lives. Because not too far from the station, the rain had eroded 12 kilometers of the track. It had all been washed away. It was a disaster waiting to happen, one that the Indian railway staff had averted. But the worst was not over. Back at the station, there was confusion, restlessness. The passengers wanted to know why their train had not been allowed to go any further. There were babies on board. There were elderly men and women. The railway staff was flooded with questions. They decided to move the passengers to a nearby relief camp. But just as they had successfully shifted 300 passengers, it began raining all the more heavily. The water level increased and the escape route was cut off. The rescue mission had to be stopped. Those who were still in the train had no way out. They had no option but to spend the night inside the train. The railway staff remained at the station with the passengers. The station's electricity was cut off to avert any disaster. The station was cut off from the rest of the world. There was waterlogging on all four sides, and there was no way to get any food to the passengers. The night turned into morning, and the morning to night. No help came. 2 trucks reportedly tried to get to the station, but they failed. The railway staff and the passengers had no access to food. There was no water. It was only later on Tuesday that water began receding from the station. Railway personnel could finally enter the station and bring help, much needed help, to those stranded. It was a little over 8:30 in the morning. Railway staff waded through flood water and began distributing food packets. Passengers could hear a chopper overhead. The Indian Air Force too had come to the rescue. The chopper was dropping food packets. Their ordeal had finally come to an end. More importantly, they were safe. No one knows what would have happened had the train been allowed to leave the Srivaikuntham station. Why am I telling you this story tonight? So that we recognize the work that India's railway staff puts in. We recognize their commitment to their work. Because we don't do this very often. Every time there is a derailment and an accident, a railway disaster, we point the finger at the railways. We scrutinize the staff. Fair. But on days like these, we must also applaud their dedication and, of course, their decision-making, which in this case has saved lives. The Wuhan virus is back, and it remains our top focus today as well. In India, the air smells of precaution. After Kerala, the JN.1 variant has now been recorded in Goa. There are at least 15 new cases of this subvariant that we know very little about as of now. States have their guards up, and so do other countries. COVID cases in Malaysia have doubled. Singapore has become a country of great concern. Indonesia has asked those travelling to be as vigilant as they were back in the pandemic era. I have to say, it's Deja Vu December. And I'm bringing you the latest at 9 p.m. IST. India has reported 142 new Wuhan virus cases in the last 24 hours. The active caseload has gone up to 1,970. At least one person has died. The victim was from Karnataka. The new subvariant JN.1 has become the talk of town. The subvariant has now been found in samples collected in Goa. Across India, Wuhan virus cases are steadily rising. In the last 24 hours, new cases were recorded in Kerala, Karnataka, Maharashtra, Puducherry, Gujarat, Tamil Nadu, Madhya Pradesh and Delhi. As for the active cases, Kerala alone accounts for 1,600. So the next obvious question is, how is India reacting to the upsurge? Testing has been scaled up in Uttar Pradesh. Like we told you, Karnataka has asked the elderly and those with underlying comorbidities to mask up immediately. The government of India has advised states to monitor and report cases of any influenza-like illness, any symptoms, any cases of severe acute respiratory illness as well. This new subvariant has come with a fear factor. The world has seen what the Wuhan virus is capable of. India remembers the horrors of the Delta variant. So could JN.1 be as transmissible as deadly? The answer is we don't know yet. The JN.1 was first detected in Luxembourg. In September, the subvariant was found in the US. China reported a case on the 15th of December. The country of particular concern here is Singapore. Why do I say that? Because in Singapore, cases are rapidly rising. Let me show you some statistics from Singapore's Ministry of Health. On the 28th of November, the daily average of COVID-19 infections was a little over 3,000. Cut to present, the number now is 7,730. Cases have doubled. Look at the weekly numbers. That too has almost doubled, from 32,035 to 56,043. That's a big jump. Singapore's Ministry of Health is now updating COVID numbers daily. It is back to the pandemic drill. Because the situation is getting worse. Hospitalization has gone up. Around 349 people are being admitted to the hospital daily. This is in comparison to 224 the week before. Average ICU admissions have gone up from 4 to 9. That's more than double. The statistics are grim and Singapore is pointing the finger at JN.1. Businesses have increased their cleaning frequencies. A second COVID-19 treatment facility has opened at the Singapore Expo. The facility aims to cater to those who do not need intensive hospital care. Let's look at Indonesia now. The country has recorded 2,243 new cases. In Jakarta alone, 200 cases are being recorded daily. The JN.1 variant has been reported in Jakarta, Batam City and the Riau Island province. The country's Vice President, Maruf Amin, said on Monday that mask wearing has been advised in some locations. Reports say thermal scanners have come back at some border checkpoints. This includes Jakarta's International Airport and the Batam Ferry Terminal. Let's talk about Malaysia now. Cases have doubled in the week ending December 2nd. The country's transport minister has advised people to mask up on public transport. The country's Kelantan Islamic Religious and Malay Customs Council too has advised people to go back to wearing face masks when at the mosque. The Yang di Pertuan Agong, or unofficially the King of Malaysia, has advised people to avoid 3 C's: crowded places, confined spaces and close conversation. That's the situation in Asia as of now. The Wuhan virus is making its way back into people's homes. Elsewhere too, it's not too different. Take the case of Germany, the United Kingdom, the United States. They are all reporting a steady rise in Wuhan virus cases. So, what should you do? How can you keep yourself safe as well as your loved ones safe? It is, after all, the holiday season. Airports and railway stations will be crowded. Tourist spots will be buzzing. Hotels and restaurants will be fully booked. But what's needed right now is awareness. People need to understand that celebration can wait. If you are feeling under the weather, stay home. If you have symptoms like a cough, a headache, sore throat, or difficulty breathing, then call your doctor immediately. Prioritize precaution, mask up. Bring back sanitizing, hand washing frequently. And if you are traveling, be extra careful. Now here's what authorities should do. 1. Focus on crowd management. Ensure spaces are well ventilated. This will minimize the spread of the new variant. 2. Prepare hospitals. Ensure states have adequate beds, oxygen cylinders. India has come a long way since Delta. India's healthcare infrastructure has been ramped up. Today, there are critical care hospital blocks in every district. Lab networks have been strengthened. There are dedicated COVID care centers. India's medical staff has been trained to handle the Wuhan virus. Today, 95% of the Indian population has received at least 2 doses of the Wuhan virus vaccine. But will the vaccine be effective against this new subvariant? We don't know. But what we do know is that winter months and pollution compromise our immunity as is, year on year. So what we need is to stay alert, to stay vigilant, and above all, stay calm and do not panic. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has made a big charge at the opposition parties today. He alleges that they are rattled after being defeated in the recently held state polls. He says they are frustrated and that is why they disrupt parliamentary proceedings. Prime Minister Modi's big statement comes on a day when a record number of MPs have been suspended in a single day. 141 MPs have been ejected from Parliament, both from the lower house and the upper house. It's a figure which is unprecedented in the history of the Indian Parliament. Why? They say it's for a simple reason. They say they want accountability from the government. They say they want answers. Answers to why and how on 13th December, on the 22nd anniversary of the 2001 terror attack on Parliament, 2 men breached the security of Parliament once again. For seeking answers on how the intruders managed to evade layers of security to enter the House and release coloured smoke. Yesterday, 79 MPs were suspended. Today, 49 MPs have been suspended. These include National Conference leader Farooq Abdullah, Indian National Congress leaders Shashi Tharoor and Karthi Chidambaram, Nationalist Congress parties Supriya Sule, Samajwadi parties Dimple Yadav and many more. Since the security scare last week, the opposition MPs have been protesting in both houses of Parliament. They wanted the Home Minister Amit Shah to answer questions about the security failure. The Speaker of the lower house, the Lok Sabha, Om Birla, said that the MPs were suspended due to their unruly behaviour. He maintains any security-related incident falls under the purview of the Secretariat. He says, and I quote, "The government cannot intervene in responsibilities of Lok Sabha Secretariat. We will not allow that either." Now, that was last week. That's when the spree of suspensions began. But the suspended members do not see it like that. They feel betrayed. They have criticized the move as unfair. Now, the opposition leaders are up in arms. So what does the rule book say? The general principle is that it is the role and duty of the presiding officer to maintain order in the House. In the case of the Lok Sabha, it is the Speaker of the House. In the case of the Rajya Sabha, it is the Chairman of the House. In order to ensure that the proceedings go smoothly, the Speaker or the Chairman is empowered to force a member to withdraw. He or she can direct a member to withdraw if it is found that the member's conduct has been disorderly or disrespectful towards the authority of the Chair. It is meant to clear any obstruction in the House so that business can be conducted. But what are the terms of suspension? The maximum period of suspension is remainder of the session. If suspended MPs cannot enter the chamber or attend the meetings of the committees, he or she will not be eligible to give notice for discussion or submission. He or she also loses the right to get a reply to questions. In this case, the ruckus was created because the opposition say they wanted answers from the government. Now that we have all the facts laid out, let me pose the big question. Was it really required? It's a question that matters. And it matters because it is in the interest of the public. Let me explain how. Suspension is supposed to be a last resort. Asking questions is the opposition's right. Answering the questions is the government's responsibility. The Indian Parliament works according to an essential principle, the principle of collective responsibility. It means that the ministers of the council are held responsible to the Parliament in any case of consequence. Well, this is a case of severe consequences, so isn't it the responsibility of the ministers to conduct honest and open conversation? Yes, a parliament cannot function if there's constant ruckus. Yes, parliamentarians sometimes resort to deliberate disruptions, but it only highlights the need to strike a balance between deliberate disruption and discussing important issues. It is difficult to conduct business if there are planned parliamentary offences and deliberate disturbances being made for publicity or political reasons alone. In closing, it is quite clear where the buck stops. The responsibility for a well-functioning parliament rests squarely on our elected representatives. They must prioritise smooth operations of the House. They must avoid deliberate disruptions. They must ensure that when they speak up, they truly represent the interests of the people. It is incumbent upon them to be proactive in finding solutions.